don't matter what your name is, share your story. We'll be waiting, for the haters won't.
You ready?
Yep.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, to For the Haters podcast. We are joined by Ryan, a husband, a father, an educator who has spent the last several years balancing the role of full-time provider and full-time caregiver. Ryan's wife, Cheryl, has battled multiple brain tumors since she was 12 years old, most recently just 4 months after the birth of their second child. This conversation is about what it means to be the well spouse, the one who stays strong, keeps the schedule, manages the house, and often suppresses their own fears for the sake of everyone else. Ryan opens up about marriage, fatherhood, medical trauma, and the beauty and burden of loving someone through the unthinkable. Let's get into it. Ryan, first and foremost, everyone, if you're listening to this and you support Karma and Chaos as well, or anything else that Kale does, you know Ryan. This is the Ryan. Ryan, we stand Ryan in every fashion that there is. And I'm just so excited to have you on here because I know that the way that we interact outside of, this conversation about what we're about to have is so different. I'm excited to get to know you as the person that you are and the person, that you bring. So thank you so much for being here. If you could just start out by telling us a little bit about your life just before you met Cheryl, and then how did you meet Cheryl?
So I am from the Piedmont area of North Carolina. If anyone's ever heard of Mebane. Mebane has grown significantly since I was a kid. I met Cheryl at high school. So kind of where we grew up, I'm in Mebane, she's in Burlington. We're in the same county, we're in the same school district, but our paths didn't really cross until we got to high school. Funny enough, I went to church with her aunt for a really long time. And it's like, once I started hitting that high school age, she was like, "Oh, you're gonna meet my niece Cheryl. She's gonna be in the marching band." That's how we met. We are of the same age. We were both in marching band together in high school. I wouldn't say at that particular moment in time that there was anything other than I'm Ryan, I'm Cheryl. We were acquaintances. I knew her, she knew me. We would reconnect in 2017. So much later, much more life had passed.
Before we get to the reconnection, though, just to set the scene, I'm guessing small town vibes, North Carolina.
Right.
Yeah. Any siblings?
So I have a sister. She's 4.5 years younger than me.
Okay.
So I remember she started kindergarten. I was in 5th grade, and that was the closest our paths ever crossed, going up through public school. I will say mine and her relationship has grown. Not that it was ever bad, but I feel like we've been able to connect as adults and as parents because within the last year, she just had a kid.
Oh, that's beautiful. Uncle life.
Yep. My mom she still works. We're talking all these years later for IBM. IBM is based out of what we call the Research Triangle here. So she's been with IBM since 1990. She's fixing to talk about retiring at the end of 2026. So we're talking about 36 years. My dad worked as a fireman, then a fire investigator, then a fire inspector for Greensboro. He came back to Alamance County and he was the Alamance County Fire Marshal. Now he works with North Carolina Emergency Management. So they stay busy. They're approaching the retirement age, but they're still pretty busy.
And now the next busy will be just being grandparents more.
Absolutely. And they really, going back to my mom talking about retirement, she said, "I really want to be able to pick Nathan up." And if I'm being honest, I said, "I really want you to pick him up because after school, is expensive. So, let's get this train going."
So if you support, it's like time's ticking. When are you going to retire?
Right. Absolutely.
All right. So bring us to 2017 when you and Cheryl reconnected. How did that happen?
I remember 2017, I'm 25. I had my first job as a band director in Elizabethtown, North Carolina. And I remember for wanting to find someone, not trying to sugarcoat it, and I wanted to be very intentional about it. So I think if I remember correctly, how we started talking was kind of organic, just random conversation on Facebook. And when I saw the conversation, kind of keep up, then it became very, we started very intentionally communicating and dialoguing about what life had been like for the last 7 years since we had graduated.
How far into those conversations did you realize that there was something more than, a friendship?
So we started talking, I really feel like it was October of 2017. And then February of 2018, we were talking about getting married.
So quickly.
She was everything that made sense to me. She was very, very cut and dry. She was very tough. I like it when a woman is not afraid to speak her mind to me. And Cheryl had no issue, no qualms about doing that whatsoever. She checked all the boxes very quickly for me. I'm sure she would say the same thing if she were here with me today.
And so you had a understanding that Cheryl had two previous brain tumors as a child and as a teen, I'm sure through that conversation. Was it not until later that you understood that when you had those conversations or when something came up? How
So,
forward was she? What did you understand about the history when you two got married?
so when I first met her in 2006, I did not know her history. And that particular school year, that spring, would be when she had her second tumor. I remember the point after that. I remember her having like a Make-A-Wish evening to raise money for Make-A-Wish, due to her experiences with Make-A-Wish. Make-A-Wish had sent her to Hawaii, when she was young, so she wanted to pay it forward that way. I remember that. I remember, classes that I would have with her to where she would have to use magnification in order to make certain assignments that we do, with minimal effort to make that work for her. So I was aware of it. There were certain aspects that I'm sure we'll get to later. There were certain aspects of it that I wasn't completely aware of her medical history, but I knew enough. I knew enough of it once we first started talking in 2017. Absolutely.
And how long after 2017 did you guys get married?
We were married. We just celebrated our 7th wedding anniversary on December the 29th of this past year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You were married pretty quickly.
Yep. So we were talking about marriage in February. So like around Valentine's Day, we were talking about it in 2018 and we were married that year. So
Yeah.
we moved quick.
How far into the marriage when you had your first child?
I like that story in and of itself. So she became pregnant in, I believe it was May of 2019. And it's like as soon as we could get doctor, because you have to have that visit with the doctor for him to say you're pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
We had done the home test. It said that she was positive. By the time we went for that visit, she was miscarrying.
Mm-hmm.
Not to, because that's a completely different topic. I wish people talked about it more. I really wish people talked about it more because it's painful, and when you don't talk about it, you feel very alone. It can be a very lonely thing if you allow it to be. The very next month, it's like they said you'll get your period within 6 weeks of your miscarriage ending. Well, she never got her period because before that 6-week window of when she would have gotten her period again, she was already pregnant with Nathan.
Oh, wow.
So we conceived Nathan in 2019, and Nathan was born on April the 8th of 2020.
Wild time to have a first child.
Oh, absolutely. So North Carolina, they had, I think the world at that point, shut down in March of that year. So we were sitting at the house for a month before Nathan was here. It was a really wild time because I remember one of those final ultrasounds It's like somebody let me in by mistake. They weren't going to let the significant other go in for the ultrasound, but because somebody had let me in by mistake, they let me stay in there for the final ultrasound. It's just weird to think about now. But absolutely, he was born a month later, and then we were still in isolation for 6 weeks after that.
Yeah. Yeah. When you wrote in, you had mentioned that, and this I'm quoting, "I'm not sure that I ever thought her medical history was a thing of the past." What do you mean by that? Can you unpack that a little bit?
So I think what I meant by that was, looking back, I don't know if in 2019, 2020, I don't know if there was ever a moment where I thought, her medical history is a thing of the past. But looking back, I certainly acted that way. I think both of us did.
Okay.
She had a tumor in 2004. She had a tumor in 2007. That was something, it's in the past. I think we were both under the impression that what she had experienced was behind her.
Mm-hmm.
So she wasn't having routine scans. It wasn't, because she explained it to me once. It's like after you have a tumor, and now that I've lived some of this, I can speak from my experience too. Once you have a tumor, at first your scans afterwards are very frequent. So she was having them every 3 months after this last one. She said early on, 3 months became 6 months. It became a year. And, eventually she had went a very long time without having a tumor. So without having a scan.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't really doing our due diligence.
Of that.
Yeah.
So you had Nathan in 2020, and then she became pregnant again in what year?
She became pregnant in 2023. 2023 was when she was pregnant with Riley. When she had Nathan, we weren't living where we were now. We came back home. It took a while to have Riley. It was 2023. She was born in March of 2024.
Okay.
And I, at first I had wanted Nathan to have a brother because I didn't have a brother. And it sounds silly now, but it's like, I wanted Nathan to have what I didn't get. But when I tell you that girl, the way that she could just blink her eyelashes at me and my heart just melts.
So Riley was more for you than it was for Nathan.
She's great. She's great. But yeah, she was born in 2024.
And then after Riley is when Cheryl you started seeing symptoms again.
I looked this up. Because I could tell you the events that we were at. I could tell you the month that we were in. It was July the 6th of 2024. So her mom had invited us. There was like a quartet that was singing at her church. When you're just thinking of it as an event, it was very random. We went, they sung, we had ice cream, we had cake. We get back in the truck, and I know I said I wasn't going to curse, but we're talking about a tumor here. She said, it really feels like somebody just nailed the shit out of the top of my head.
Mm.
I remember it. I don't know if I'll ever forget it. She was like, somebody just nailed the shit out of the top of my head. And she's going like this. And I'm like, did you hit it on the door? We have young kids. Did you get popped by accident? I don't know what I thought in that particular moment, but it's like when that happened for her, her demeanor like instantly changed. But she was able to tell me it's not a headache. This isn't a migraine. I know what a migraine feels like. She was like, it's just so sore on the top of my head. And that was the first time that she had made a comment that kind of, it was a very ominous comment that leads us to what happened next.
Did you realize that then? Like, is that a thought that went in your head?
So I don't think it was for me. I think it was for her, because her comments were like, the way this is feeling, I think I need to schedule a doctor's appointment for next week. It's like my mind didn't go there. I feel like hers went there quicker than mine did.
Mm-hmm.
She said, if my head is hurting on Monday, I'm making an appointment. And ultimately that's what ended up happening. I think the 6th of July was like a Saturday. I'm pretty sure we were in the doctor's office next Tuesday. I trusted her. I trusted her gut, obviously. No one really wants to go there. No one really wants to to take themselves to a place where it's like, okay, this really could be serious. We have a 4-month-old in the back seat. This really can't be happening. But it turns out that was the case.
What was your response then, right? Emotionally, logistically, when you find out that it's back?
So she called me July the 23rd in tears. I just want to say this. Those episodes of Grey's Anatomy where like you get a head CT and a surgery like all in a day, all within a 60-minute time span, that is so not realistic. She had MRI the week after the 6th of July, and it took like 2 weeks for the MRI to come back. So the 23rd of July, she calls me in tears. I'm at work, my summer job. And I remember telling my boss, it's like, I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go. Cheryl called. I gotta go. I had kind of, given them a little background. I had given them some insight. I had told them that we were waiting for some MRI results.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that they knew that it really wasn't bad, that it was really bad based off of my reaction. I remember from the very beginning taking on kind of that role of what did they say? What do we do? This is the information we have. Let's sit with it. We're okay. It was kind of that. I didn't want to whitewash it. I didn't want to make it seem, not serious. But I already kind of from the very beginning took on that, I'm going to be strong for you. I think that's a good way of putting it. I'm going to be strong for you as we go through this journey. So that was kind of what I took, the route that I took at the beginning.
And so what are those steps like for you guys? Is Cheryl working at this point prior to this?
I'll add in some about that. So she, because of her vision, the first tumor that she had was in her, every tumor has been in the occipital lobe. So the first tumor she had was, I believe it was the size of a golf ball. Going back to how much did I know about this? When we got married, when I saw a scan where they had removed the first tumor, it's like her brain was still growing when she was a 6th grader in middle school. Her brain was still growing. So it when they removed the tumor, it was what's left is fluid. It was huge. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, her eyesight now is technically 2200. She can get work, but it's stuff that doesn't involve much computer work, stuff that involves paperwork. So like at the time, going back to your question, she was working for a dining hall for an assisted living in Burlington. And she had just gone back to work from having Riley. She had just gone back to shifts when we found out that she had a tumor. So I remember on her end, she's calling her boss and she's saying, this is what's come up. I need to be able to handle this. I'll keep you posted. And at the time they were like, oh, absolutely. You go do what's best for you. We had an MRI done at Alamance Regional Medical Center. So it's just what was close and convenient for us. It's where our primary care referred us to have the MRI, and they sent the MRI to Duke. We had a consult with a surgeon about, his action plan. He said, I remember in the first meeting, and I remember being very relieved. He said, I don't think this is very urgent. He said, I don't think you need to go into surgery today. I don't think you need surgery tomorrow. He said, this is non-urgent. So that is something that you should be, I sound silly saying you should be happy about it, but best case scenario, this is a non-urgent surgery. And so we met early August, and her surgery was scheduled for, I believe her surgery was September the 27th of 2024.
Okay.
So from time of diagnosis to surgery, I believe it was a 66-day period. So again, going back to what you see on TV, everything happens, as quick as you want it to. Absolutely not.
During this time, do you ever have space to grieve or process what is going on?
I've learned in many different ways that perception is not always reality. So at the time, I felt like I didn't have a place to be worried and upset and sad. Because, I had work, I had to come home from work. I have a bunch of different things that come with being a 33-year-old dad of two children, that I told myself that, I'm having to check boxes. I'm trying to make myself busy. I'm trying to plan for, what can we do once the surgery happens? Because one of the requirements of her surgery was she couldn't, like, you could place children in her lap. Our children could come sit with her, but she couldn't hold her children. She couldn't carry them. What do we do with that? Will she have the energy to have dinner? Do I need to make sure that I have dinner scheduled? I need to make sure that I have people staying with her during the day, so that way I don't have to take off so many of my days, because I started to rack up a bunch of days being out for her appointments.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I do what a lot of men do, where I made myself busy. That's how I chose to cope with it, certainly.
And, now you have that feeling of, you said this to me, that you can't help but acknowledge the burden it is to be a caregiver. Can you talk about the mental and emotional toll of what that ride was like for you?
I know her. She can work in many spaces that people don't give her credit for, but because her ability to go out and get a job is so limited because of her sight, I have the full-time job as a teacher. I spend a lot of my time assisting in local marching bands, because that's a love of mine that's never died. I remember one random time where it's like I'm at a football game with the marching band. Everyone's having a wonderful time, and I really just want to be at home. But I can't be at home, because if I don't have this part-time job, then we don't have the supplemental income. And I remember in that particular moment being really bummed. Being really bummed. And it's like I felt terrible at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to be the selfless person. I really do. I want to be the selfless person here. I really want to be that go-getter because my wife can't. I really want to do all of these things for her because she feels like the world is against her at times. I want to be that person for her always. And those are moments where it's hard. And so those are the times where it's like, is it a burden? So sometimes it really is. It really is.
It's hard for people to admit that it is a burden, right? People
Right.
think people
Right.
think it all the time, but I think that there is some healing that comes for allowing yourself to say it out loud and allowing yourself to be real with the life that you're living, because being
Right.
a caregiver is not easy.
Right, right. And you're exactly right. It's like it's hard for me to sit here and admit it. It's the times where you're exhausted and you allow your mind to go there, and it's like you have to get a fresh perspective at times.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. With Cheryl, when Cheryl was going through recovery, how did you find that balance between helping Cheryl, parenting two young children, finding time for yourself as well?
A multifaceted question. So, they I don't get to school as early as I do now because I'm taking Nathan. He's in kindergarten, and but I used to get to school like an hour before everyone else did. And yes, I would get things done, but it was what I considered to be time that I had to myself. Sure, I'm working on schoolwork, but nobody's talking to me. Nobody's asking me questions. Nobody's bothering me. That's the me time that I definitely had. I will say that I worked very diligently to have like a meal train set up. So that way, at least on weekdays, we didn't have to worry as much about planning a dinner, how we were going to get it, how we were going to get it home, all the logistics that come with that. I had set up, my parents were very gracious. My sister was very gracious. They, for that month after her recovery, they each took a day off a week to where they could stay with her while I was out of the house. We had people from our church come in and stay while I was out of the house. I say small things, they're really big things, but for people to do that for us, that alleviated a lot of the stress that came with, okay, what are we going to do for the typical household stuff that we have. In terms of the kids, we really just tried to. So Riley was still of the age where, with whoever was staying with Cheryl, if they gave her toys, she was occupied. Nathan involves a little bit more attention and focus. You have to keep that kid going with 85 million things. Nothing has changed in the last year. The people who came to stay with her really were getting the kids, keeping them entertained. Absolutely. And also, Nathan was doing preschool. He was doing half day preschool at the time, so he would be able to have his typical routine. We tried not to interrupt his routine as much as we could.
It takes a certain person, and I don't know if you struggled with it in the beginning at all, but to allow yourself to accept health, right? Like a lot of people would be too proud, too embarrassed, to take the steps of asking for help, of allowing for help. Simple things like the meal train is such an easy, again, not easy, but doable thing that someone can do.
Right.
But from your perspective, like that's a huge ask for you to be able to do that. Was it always easy for you to just allow for that help? Was it something that you had to kind of get over or get through?
I did. I remember the Facebook post I made, and it's like I had to swallow my pride and hit post. I really like to be able to say that we got it under control and we got this. I've more so become that way the older I get. I didn't want to so publicly say that this is hard. These are some things that we just can't make happen for ourselves. We can't make happen for ourselves right now, and it would be very beneficial if people were willing to come. And my ability to get over it came the more I saw people willing to help. It's like I post it and these comments are rolling in. Oh, absolutely. Let me know how I can be helpful. The more I saw people being willing to help, the more open I came to accepting it. Absolutely.
And so going back to kind of that treatment and to the medical frustration that you guys went through, you talked about some challenges with her oncologist and radiologist not being on the same page. What was that like for your family?
The first meeting we had with the oncologist was intense. It was intense. So she comes in, she says, I've spoken with your surgeon. Your surgeon has resected all the tumor. I see that your scan looks great. She said, okay, now we talk about some preventative ways to make sure that we don't see something like this happen again. And she said at first that her recommendation was, I recommend doing rounds of chemotherapy with radiation to prevent a recurrence. Cheryl said, and maybe there's somebody out there that can, provide some insight for this. Cheryl said, and I'll never forget it. She said, well, are you telling me that I'm dying? It was really morbid conversation. She says, so are you telling me that I'm dying? And the oncologist says, well, no, you're not. And she says, well, if I'm not dying, I'm not interested in taking chemotherapy. She said, can you tell me that there is any difference between taking chemotherapy and radiation or just radiation? And the oncologist said, there really isn't much difference between the two. We set out with this idea that we're going to do radiation. And Cheryl says, after my second tumor, we had radiation and it wiped me out. She said, I had 7 weeks of radiation. She said, I remember days I couldn't get out of bed. My daughter's fixing to have her first Christmas. My daughter's fixing to have her first birthday. My son's birthday is not far behind it. Is there a way that we could put this off? And that was the mistake. Looking back, that was the mistake. The oncologist said, absolutely, we can hold off. So we had a 3-month scan in January. That was clear. We had a scan 3 months after that. So 6 months later, she had a clean scan. The oncologist says Christmas and their birthdays had passed. The oncologist says, okay, now I've set you up an appointment to speak with the radiologist about starting radiation. And we get to that appointment, and the radiologist has said, too much time has passed for radiation to do anything. I would not advise you undergo any radiation treatment whatsoever. And I don't judge her for this. Cheryl had a few choice words for the radiologist that I don't feel comfortable repeating on a live recording. And I don't blame her for it. But her point of it was, whose advice am I supposed to be taking here? I have an oncologist saying that, according to her, I can wait indefinitely to do radiation treatment. And I have a radiologist who's saying that you really need to start radiation treatment within a couple of weeks of your surgery. So we went back to the radiologist, we went back to the oncologist, and the oncologist said that you can start a pill regimen at her 9-month scan, which would be in July. The irony of it all, since it would be a year prior to that she found out she had a tumor. She said, in July, you can start a pill regimen that would essentially function the same as radiation. We would administer this to you. You would take it for a year. Ultimately, the outcome would be like doing radiation treatments. There were 2 pills. I remember one was a chemo pill. I don't remember what the other one was. We had a bunch of questions. You're essentially taking chemotherapy. What all does this mean? There was like a laundry list of fatigue. I think she said, if I'm not mistaken, that you even had to make sure that you washed your hands behind your children because of taking a chemo pill that was doing what it would to her body. They said it would age her. It would age her skin. It would age her organs. And I guess what would lead us to the next segment would be, she could not conceive for the year that she would be on it. And they did not advise that she conceived for 6 months after that medication. So technically she could conceive a child while being on this medication, but this medication, there was a history of like it would lead to birth defects.
Mm-hmm.
And they strongly advised that not be something that we pursued while she was on that medication.
So how do you weigh your decisions around treatment, especially when it came to, preserving life or quality of life versus clinical timelines?
So at the time, we felt like that was what we did. So radiation was no longer an option. This pill treatment, it doesn't sound ideal, but if this was our option to try to prevent further tumors from recurring, then this is the route that we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what was really hard at the time was that I had always felt like I wanted 3 children. I remember back from being much younger and looking at my mom's side of the family, and it's like her brother had a boy and a girl. Her sister had a boy and a girl. My mother had a boy and a girl. And here Cheryl and I are at home, we have that boy and girl. And from a very young age, it's like 3 was just kind of written on my heart. I had wanted the big family. Cheryl didn't have such strong feelings about it. Hers goes an entirely different way. Her family has a history of having age gap children. So she didn't mind having multiple children. She just didn't want to have children, a decade apart. So that was kind of hard. This is probably what we need to do, but we're 33. And with this time frame, we wouldn't be able to start trying for a child at 35. And I know people have children later in life. That's not what I'm making this about. For us, it just didn't sit right.
Yeah, for sure.
And her mom had a baby at 40. Cheryl was like, I'm not having a child at 40. So she, in that regard, she was very strong-willed in that opinion. So we knew that that's what we needed to do, but we were bummed at the same time. It's like the option we have, but kind of like I said previously, we felt like somebody was making that child decision for us. It's one thing if you decide that you're done, and I respect people who have no children or, have one and done. It's one thing that you decide when you're done. It sits a little different when you feel like someone or something is making that choice for you. And that was hard.
Did you ultimately make the decision for her to go on those pills?
So we said that that's what when we left that day, we said that's we're going to do this. We're going to have the year scan in July, and we'll go through with that, with those pills.
You had that meeting in July?
So this was the meeting where we were having this whole conversation was 6 months after her initial surgery. So this would have been around April, and we were saying at her year scan, which would be 3 months after that in July, that's when she would start that medication.
She became pregnant with your third before she started.
So I remember it was VBS. It was June. It was early June. So we were at Vacation Bible School. My son was with his class. I'm not sure what Riley was doing that day. I think Riley was just hanging out with us. And Cheryl goes, You're bugging me. She's like, I know you're just standing here talking to me and you're really not doing anything, but I'm kind of irritated with you right now. She was like, kind of like when I'm pregnant. Can I be pregnant? And I'm like, oh God. And more stuff like that happened. And before she took a test, a dead ringer was heartburn. I have never heard her complain about heartburn except for when she's having children. Heartburn came up, and I remember not too long after that, she woke me up one Saturday morning, and she was like, look at this. She was, the more kids she had, it's like the quicker we've been able to pick up on these, could you argue? I think you might be pregnant. She was also like, she was weaning from nursing with Riley anyway, but her supply really dried up when she became pregnant this time. So yeah, but to answer your question, before July ever came, she was pregnant. So we had to change our course of how all of this was going to go. Absolutely.
And how has Cheryl's health, and this is recently, so Cheryl is currently pregnant, almost due. How has her health been for the past year or 9 months?
So in terms of brain scans, they said when you're pregnant, you can have brain scans. There's a dye contrast that they do to allow them to see things more clearly, or at least that's how it's been explained to me. You can have scans when you're pregnant. She has a scan on January the 29th. And the way that it was explained to me was, let's say you have a clean scan on January 29th. Great. Then labor and delivery is aware of that. It's more of for labor and delivery's awareness. Okay. If she had a clean scan, that's great. Here we go. If she doesn't have a clean scan, labor and delivery is aware of that, and stuff can take place afterwards if necessary. And we haven't had that meeting yet, so I wouldn't know what that would look like in the event that her scan wasn't clean.
Okay.
But that particular scan is more or less so labor and delivery knows how her health is in regards to that going into delivering our baby. In terms of pregnancy, before her and I were together, she had a child at the age of 21. He did not live. He was born with non-ketotic hyperglycemia. That could be a whole episode for the haters in and of itself. But she made the comment to me the other day. She said, having a baby at 21 versus having a baby at 33. She was like, I don't know how my mom had a baby at 40. So it's like each time she does this, and this, knock on wood, this is it. This is the grand finale. It's been harder. She's been complaining of back pain and hip pain pretty bad here the last couple of weeks. But like I told you, we learned that she's being induced in just a few weeks, February the 3rd. So we are on, we're right there. We're almost at the finish line.
You're almost at the finish line. You called this baby the period at the end of a very long sentence. What does that chapter feel like now?
I felt like with her getting she might call me dramatic. She does call me dramatic regularly. I felt like in a way, we were able to put this chapter to bed.
Mhm.
We haven't. I mean, she's still going to have scans. We're definitely going to be adamant about making sure we stay on top of things like this moving on in the future. But I felt like, we're able to move on from the stress, the heartache, the sadness, the intense moments that we had, especially in 2024. 2025, we started moving in the right direction. But I feel like with the birth of this baby, we're able to put a lot of what we experienced past us.
Mhm. What role did your faith and support network play in helping you navigate these moments?
This really put into perspective to me like what faith is. At the end of the day, sometimes all I have is my faith. At the end of the day, sometimes all I have to stand on is the fact that we're gonna make it through this one way or another. We're gonna make it through this one way or another. This is going to work its way through. One day we will get past this. It really opened my eyes to what faith truly is. What faith truly is, absolutely.
What would you say to someone who might be listening right now, quietly kind of holding things together, whether that's a caregiver or just someone struggling with a partner who's going through medical complications?
It's very cliche to say that it gets better, but it does. It does. Hard things happen. Hard things are difficult. So sometimes hard things are excruciatingly difficult. I get it. I completely do. And then those hard and difficult things pass. Going back to talking about those hard moments where, I want to be home with my family. While those moments are difficult, I understand and accept the fact that it's not for nothing. It's not for nothing. I am being that support system for my family, even in the times that I don't feel like it. In the times where I feel like I'm not getting anything right, you are. And I would tell people who are walking through similar experiences, that you are doing the right thing. You have this. You're gonna get through this. And those times where you feel like you are alone, you're not. You're not. Which, funny enough, I believe is one of your mantras, that you are not alone. Absolutely, you are not alone.
We always say that here, whether you feel like it or if it might even be someone you don't even know yet that is feeling the same things you are, which make life just feel a little bit less lonely, having those similarities and having that support, whether you know that it's there or not. What have you learned about love and marriage and resilience through this?
I was kind of this opinion anyway, but I think it solidified and validated the opinion that I have that love is the choice, and I choose it freely. Love is the choice. I am fortunate that I get up every day and choose my wife and choose my children and choose my family. I am fortunate in the fact that I can get up every day and choose to be kind, to be helpful, to be all of those things, that a supportive husband, that a supportive dad, that a supportive teacher can be. Marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. It really is. And Cheryl, if Cheryl were sitting right here, she would be telling you the same thing. Marriage, you're with your spouse 24/7. You're going to have those bumps in the road. The bumps in the road aren't anything compared to the fulfillment that
Mhm.
you get from your spouse and your significant other. That's definitely something that I have taken from this. It it's however it sounds, I'll say it, the part in your vows where you get to love your spouse in sickness and in health. I don't have to do this myself by myself. Cheryl's with me, and it's vice versa. I don't have to struggle. I don't have to worry myself with finances. I get to have my partner here with me. Almost a resolve, almost a comfort. It's very cathartic to know that in all of these moments, I have Cheryl, and I'll be honest, I'll go home and tell her that today because I don't tell her that enough. But she's just great.
Yeah. I love the way that you speak about her. And I think hoping, someone listening is just reminded that we're all human and we need to hear that more often than we do. Why was it important for you to come here and share your story?
Kind of from what you were speaking to about, I I have at this point I've become such an open book with my life, the things that go on in my life. And if any of this can be helpful to somebody else, then it's worth their time. And I feel like you have created a space where people get to come here and talk about their experiences, and I think stuff like this is very important. So that's the big reason why I wanted to come on For the Haters. Absolutely.
And if someone wanted to contact you, what is the best way that someone could reach out?
So, I think I gave you my Instagram handle. If not, let's see if I can pull it up in the building. I can send you my Instagram handle again. But that would be a very easy way to contact me, depending on if they're on any of the Facebook groups. That's also a very easy way to get my attention. I'm pretty prominent on Coffee Combos and Karma and Chaos.
Ryan Links _
Yes.
That is your Instagram, and you'll be tagged too on things so people can find you that way. My last question is, if you could tell your younger self anything, what would it be?
I wish that I could go tell my younger self to get up, go out there, see what the world has to offer. I became very extroverted kind of out of necessity, and I say I started that when I went to college. I'm going to get my questions answered when I have to go out and talk to people. I have to interact. So like a lot of my ability to speak now came from the experience of going away to college. If I could tell my younger self to go out and try new things, which I try to do that now with Nathan, my younger self could have done so much more than what my younger self actually did. And that's what I would definitely try to get through to young Ryan.
Well, Ryan, thank you so much for being here. Your story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the strongest people in the room are the ones who never ask for help. As a partner, caregiver, and father, you have showed up again and again, not just because it was easy, but because love demanded it. Your honesty about the emotional toll of being the well spouse offers a window into a role many carry but few talk about. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing your heart, your humor, and your strength with us. We will see you next time on For the Haters. Thanks for listening to For the Haters. Don't forget to connect with us on socials, follow, like, and share to help more people find this community. And remember, they're not alone. And if you haven't yet, join our Facebook group. We'd love to have you there. The more we grow, the more lives we can impact.
What's your name and share your story? We'll be waiting.